everyone, welcome to another lesson. In this lesson, we talked about hoisting in JavaScript. In the previous lesson, we've mentioned about the fact that declarations for variables are hoisted, but not their initialization, which means that if you try to use a variable that has not been initialized with let and const, it will give you an error because let and const does not support variables to be used without being initialized. Unlike the way the var keyword used to work before the introduction of the let and const keyword in ESC. So the initialization of JavaScript are not hoisted. Only declarations are hoisted. And for a quick refresher, what that simply means is this, that this name should have something like this. Car name equals to Benz. This is hoisted. This is declarations. But the initialization of doing something like this, let car name equals to Honda. This is not hoisted in JavaScript. As you can see that immediately I have this variable with the let keyword, the output disappear from the screen, which is to tell you that only this declaration is hoisted and not the initialization that is hoisted alongside it. So let's take a quick look at an example of what hoistings are really to see how hoisting really works in JavaScript. So let me just make an example and say this is an example one. So let me make two variables. Variable x is 5 and variable y equals to 10. Now, then assign this to something and do document dot get element by id dot inner html inner html equals to value of x is x. Now, if you look at what I have on the screen, of course, this, I think by now you should understand why this is like this, and it's for a simple fact that I'm trying to, concatenate numbers inside string. So it's going to add them together instead of, sorting them as a variable, sorting them as a number. Plus and y equals plus y. Now, the value of x is 5 and y is 10, which is correct. If you look at what you can see on my screen, or rather still, better still, I can as well add it as this way and say x outside, okay, x plus add space plus y. Now look at what I'm getting. I am getting 5 and 10. My x is 5 and y is 10, which is correct because x is 5 and y is equals to 10. Now let's now look at another example. But before we move into that other example, I quickly want to show us something. Now, if you look at the way we have this variable declaration, you can see it that it is hoisted at the top. So JavaScript recognizes this, that these variables here, they have, declaration, they have names, and they have value. And also take note that I am using var as my variable keyword. Now, this same example that I gave here, which respects how the variable names are declared and hoisted from the top. Let me now try and move one of these variable away from the top and give it a value and see how JavaScript will treat it. So let me just comment this out and do example 2. I want to change the position of the variable so that we can see how hoisting really treats variables in JavaScript. And I will make first variable and say variable x equals to 5. And then I'll go element equals this. Now say, yeah, I will use the same thing. And down, I will come here and say let y equals to 10, which is my second variable. Now, let's take a look at what is going to be the outcome of what we have on the screen. Is anything showing? Okay, nothing is showing. So let me just shift this. I want to inspect to see if there's any error. Now, you can see this now. Cannot access y before initialization. Now, which means that by trying to call y here, if you can see it, you can see that before y is declared, I've already called it here in my document or get element by id, which is assigned to this element of variable. So by trying to call y here, by trying to call y here, I am getting this reference error of I cannot access y before initialization, because of the simple fact that hoisting only respects declaration, which is this. It does not move value. Only declarations are hoisted and not initialization, which means that the value that I assign to y, it stays here, and the declaration stays here. So when JavaScript starts reading this code, it gets value for x, which is 5. Now, by the time it moves to this point, now it's only getting the name, but not the initialization. So by the time it gets to this place, JavaScript will just assign this undefined and it will move down. By the time it now discovers this, JavaScript will not move this value up and assign it to this y. So this one will have undefined, and then it just ends the execution right there. And that is the reason why we are getting cannot access y before initialization, because we are trying to use this variable before we initialize it. So hoisting only respects declaration and not the initialization of how those declarations are being initialized. So JavaScript moves variable declaration to the top, but leave their value where they are. So where the values are is where JavaScript leave it. It doesn't move value, it only moves declaration. And so always declare and initialize variable before using them. In your project, always ensure that you declare variables before you use them. Don't just declare them and try to initialize later. It always causes issue, just as we saw in this example. So always try and declare and initialize variable before using them. And then you should always use let and const to avoid hoisting confusion. With var, the behavior of your variable might be inconsistent, but using let and const will allow you to avoid the hoisting confusion, as you just saw in the example that we'll see now. So now in the next video, I want to dive deep into what exactly is hoisting in JavaScript, why it is useful, why do you need it as a developer, and its usefulness when writing code in JavaScript. So that is going to be the focus of our next lesson. And till then, I'll see you. Thank you.